This is Jeremiah. He is on fire. He is burning with scriptures as we all are on this path of learning from the Master. There's only one rabbi. I'm not the rabbi. I'm an under rabbi. I'm an under shepherd. I am your teacher. However, I am not the teacher. I will be serving Jesus Christ night and day, just as Revelation 22 says. And we will serve him in New Jerusalem. I told you servant is the biggest word in the Bible, and it is. Because that's your prime term. That's your prime function. Doesn't mean you're not a child and all of that. You are a daughter of heaven, and it's wonderful. And we talk about that here. But we focus primarily on what? What the angel told John. I am your fellow servant. The angel did not say, I am your fellow son of Adam, privileged God of any kind. I am not a TV preacher, a glorified human nonsense. The angel said, I am your fellow servant. Okay, are you getting this? This is Jeremiah with New Covenant. We're hammering home servitude here. Now we're also hammering home that you are to call Father your Father, and you are indeed adopted. And the adoption papers are in the office if you continue in the love of Jesus Christ. The adoption papers will stay in the office. If you run your marathon and you run it properly, which is to stay in the love of Jesus Christ. To do justly, love mercy, and walk humbly. This is what's required of you. By the grace of God and by the power of God, you can fulfill this obligation and fulfill the royal law. Jeremiah greets you in the only name given. He is on fire with this faith lesson because I'm not giving you every aspect of faith. I'm giving you a lot of them, and a lot of those that are germane to the entire matrix of Christianity. I'm giving a lot of them to you. You're getting almost everything in these 11 bullet points here. This is very significant, and I'm taking my time, and that's why I decided to stop. I wanted to go right through this, and I've decided to have Faith 2021 Part 2, which I'm going to do later, not right now, at least in my time zone, okay? This is all achronistic because how do I know when you're watching the video? Because I'm doing this because I am confident that I'm pleasing the Lord. See, that's another thing about this, about the Christian faith. And why am I confident that I'm pleasing the Lord? Because the Lord gives me his affirmation. Now, does that require faith to count on his affirmation? Not when it's being affirmed. When the Lord is loving you back, you don't need faith that he's loving you back because you're experiencing that love. Faith is thinking about things that you haven't received yet. Such as, is God going to love me tomorrow when I wake up? That requires faith. However, since you've already had multiple experiences, your confidence has grown. Experience brings confidence. Perseverance creates patience. Being tried creates character. And that's what gives birth to hope, or being very, very, very confident. Experiences. You know that it's wise every day to trust in the Lord for what he's already done. That's called wisdom. You're selecting to believe that love is coming tomorrow, based upon the fact that it's already happened multiple times. That's why David said, stand in awe on your bed. Having some sort of difficulty, waiting for God to resolve the difficulty, and also for God to come in a big way as you're walking on these plateaus. And the joy that you're going to receive from being patient in holiness and in sacrifices of righteousness. In other words, you're living right while you're waiting, and the joy you have is going to be 10 times better than a person getting a paycheck, who they can't wait to get paid. And that's all they think about, which is a Gentile, thinking of food, raiment, and provisions only. It doesn't mean that David is not rejoicing in God's provisions that he gets on a regular basis. That's not the point. He does rejoice in the many things that he's received, and he gives thanks for them constantly throughout the book of Psalms, and his relatives, the sons of Korah and Nun. The sons of Nun and the sons of Korah and Moses, they're all thanking God for Abraham for things they're receiving, and they're rejoicing in the things they receive. However, it's not their top crown of rejoicing, because love creates a blessed hope. Love creates number 2 on my list here. You don't get number 2 in faith, hope, and love, which is hope, unless you love the Lord. You can only have number 1, confidence in your daily walk. Number 2 demands love, because number 2 is anticipating in being with the one that you've decided to love. You got that? Now I'm going to start all over again. I'm going to get you confused. Faith gets pretty deep, but Jeremiah's going to repeat a few things, and I'm going to have to let it go, okay? I'm going to go back through it again, and I'm going to teach faith to you, and I want you to get all of this, okay? This is deep stuff. This is not basics. I do have a quick review over basics, okay? And that's 10. We have 11 issues here I'm going to go over pertaining to faith. Now I'm going to expand this, and I'm going to add a few numbers here, a few precepts, okay? But not right now. I'm going to stop on, I think I'm going to stop on 11. And I'm going to go through all 11 of these, and I'm going to spend a lot of time on 11. I have a lot of notes for 11. Are you ready? I have one Bible student who is excited, or they seem to be excited about the prospect of Faith 2021. They obviously liked Faith 2020, or was it Faith 2019? I forgot what years I formulated those lessons, but this is superior to Faith, my earlier faith lessons. It doesn't mean that there's not valuable stuff in my earlier faith lessons. This is more organized because I decided to make it more organized and easier to understand, okay? That's my job. I don't want people wandering around in the dark listening to my lessons. I want precision, and I want efficacious teachings, okay? I'm looking at my faithfully lesson component over here. I already talked about faithfully a little bit. I may give that an entire number later on. But right now I added faithfully to these 11 bullet points here. These 11 subjects and topics, okay? Which means that you're really, really confident. You're fully persuaded, and you're not wishy-washy. As Paul said, wavering. You're doing a good job of just staying on point. You're confident in all of the faithing, or faithings plural. And I'll say one more thing before we get started. Christianity is when faith disappears when you go to heaven, obviously in the rapture. However, let me add one note, and I'll mention it to you again. The components or the teachings in the faith, they don't necessarily go away. Your experiences or the teachings of the faith in the gospel, they don't go away. But you leaning on those teachings without getting the fruition or the reward of your confidence in denial for the building up of his church and the binding up of the brokenhearted, and there's a reward for binding up the brokenhearted when you are experiencing difficulties in setting at liberty those who are psychologically captive. You're looking for your reward, and you're also very satisfied in looking because the Lord is giving you a wonderful down payment of his love. But it doesn't remove the difficulties and some of the what you might call painful aspects, uncomfortable aspects of binding up the brokenhearted in the church. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of uncomfortable circumstances pertaining to you. We just looked at John 17 here, where Jesus calls the Christian walk a woman having a child. That is not, bless me, I'm going on a TV preacher clam bake to Alaska banquet. That's false Christianity, because it contradicts the master right here, who says that Christianity is essentially a woman having a child. That is not a picnic. That's not I'm blessed. It's obviously a mixed bag at best. I'll say it again. Christianity and the Christian faith is, for a fourth grader, a mixed bag at best. That's the point. We're talking about at best here. You get that? That's what the Master's saying here in Luke 17, another scripture that pertains to denial. I didn't even put that down. There are so many scriptures about the Master talking about denial that I decided not to put all of them down for time purposes, because I want to let faith go for now. Okay? I'm going to get into number 11, which is faith is essentially what the Master said in John 17. I didn't even use John 17. There are at least 50 references in the New Testament to Christianity being laying down your life. Laying down your life is not a clam bake with Rufus glitter teeth or any other demonic doctrine or heretic. The point is that for those of us who are fifth grade students who got a C in the class, we got this, as they say here in America. We got it. And we rejoice in the commands of the Lord to put us in a position where life is a lot like having a child. In spite of the fact that it has difficulties and it's a little irritating at times. We rejoice in these shakings and these disturbances. We rejoice because we have Father's love while we're going through it, and it is a little irritating and sometimes very irritating, but guess what we do? We continue to sing. You know, Nero asked one of his boys, or some of his in the Colosseum, he asked some of his people, why are the people singing while we're burning them alive? Because they refuse to recognize him as king, and they declared Jesus Christ as their king, and that they love Jesus Christ. And that dying on a stake was instant verification. There was no need for the Lord to necessarily have to put them on the potter's wheel and give them character perfection and give them the test that God told Moses, I'm going to put you in the wilderness to test you, to see what's in your heart. Nero found out what was in their heart, because they decided to be burned alive, which must be painful beyond description. They chose to be burned alive. Nero asked, back to my main idea here, Nero asked, why are they singing? Because you shouldn't sing while you're being burned alive. It doesn't make any sense. But if you have the joy of the Lord, which surpasses all understanding, which surpasses the understanding of Mr. Philosopher Nero, a professor of philosophy in the university here in the United States, which he talks the same way they did. Babylonians who are educated, they sound the same. Nero talked the same way the professors in my college did who taught philosophy. The educated atheist, antichrist, proud, unregenerate, natural man, they talk the same. In circles. Let's get to the lesson, Germain. I'm showing you the Gleason map, which was registered in 1894, I think, by Alexander Gleason, whereby that he made a map of the earth that was flat. It's also the same map that's in what? Air Force One. It's also the same map on the maps that are real maps. The United Nations has the same map that you're looking at right now. That's their logo. I have a movie that shows the Earth flat, a TV series. That was The Man from U.N.C.L.E. They showed a flat Earth map, and the guy was giving directions on the flat Earth map, because that's the real map. You're looking at what God looks at. That's the real, genuine article there. Look at South America and think of where Rio de Janeiro is in Brazil. If you take a flight to Australia, where do you go first? Transcontinental. Do you know where you go? You go to London first. Why would you go all the way to London and then go back south for thousands and thousands of miles of petrol? Why would you do that? And I use the word petrol in quotation marks, gasoline. Why would you do that? Because you can see where Australia is. That's the way you have to go. Australia is due north of the Americas. That's why they go to London first. You can't contradict reality, but you can contradict it on the television. But in real time, in real life, you can't do it. You tell me that a hot air balloon in San Diego, which I miss going to, you talk about a wonderful place. California is an amazing place. But they're having balloon races right now, hot air balloon stuff at the Equine Center in North San Diego County, Del Mar, with the racetrack and everything. And it's a wonderful time. People are enjoying themselves. The temperature is usually 80 degrees and every day, and it's just California, here I come, but it's too expensive. No, here's my point. The balloons take off. Are they free to get into the middle of the air there in the atmosphere? Yes or no? They have to be free to get to where they are. Now, people tell me, Wikipedia, Wakipedia stuff, professors, they say that balloon is stuck in the air. It's stuck in a plumb line to its place on the earth based upon gravity and barometric pressure. It's stuck. This is absolutely absurd. For anybody, even kindergartners, you talk about reality is stranger than fiction. Reality is stranger than fiction, that millions of people would believe that balloon is stuck to the atmosphere. And that in order for it to get to where it was free. Because the balloon had to be free to get to where it was. But now that it's gotten to where it is, it's frozen. A helicopter taking off in downtown Los Angeles there, the Lifesaver, whatever they call it there, which is right off the 110 freeway there, next to the Union Station where I used to hang out off and on. I'm familiar with Los Angeles a lot. They have the police copter there, the medevac stuff. Now, in order for that helicopter to fly and get over a fire and sit there for 20 minutes over the fire, it was free to get to the fire. Free as air. But once it got to the fire, it was stuck over the fire. No buoyancy. Therefore, when the earth moved 400 yards a second, it had to move 400 yards a second. I'm here to tell you, those of you interested in science, Jeremiah tells you real science. You say, Jeremiah, why do you know so much about science? Because I used to teach general ed, and when I was in high school, I told the professor, the teacher rather, that the earth is not moving 400 yards a second. That's absurd. And I stick to that opinion, and science proves me. I don't care how many books that you can pay $80 for in America or in England that tell you otherwise. Okay, just leave me alone. Go sing that song somewhere far, far away, because God gave me a brain. I'm going to use it. I'm not brainwashed. Let's get to number one. Number one is faith. Let's talk about basic what the word faith means for everybody, so to speak. People who are not Christians, your dictionary, whatever. It means to have confidence and expectation in things that you haven't seen, or that you haven't seen and you don't know how it's going to transpire. You know very little or nothing about how what you are expecting is going to exist. Those conditions, you don't know that much about it. Or you know how the conditions can appear, but you're not sure that they're going to appear based upon they're not in front of you. Confidence in things that you can't see, or that you don't know that they're going to transpire because they haven't transpired. Now, it's much deeper than that. Let's move to number two. Prime biblical examples of confidence. I went to David's wonderful example of faith in Psalm chapter 4, which is one of your prime examples of faith. There's a lot of examples of faith, but one of the best is Psalm number 4, where David says, stand in awe. You don't stand in awe in anticipation of something happening unless you really expect it to happen. And that's called David saying the same thing in Psalm 23. Surely goodness. What does that mean? That means that you're sure that goodness is going to come to you. You're positive about the future, which you are not totally, you don't have total control over. It hasn't happened yet, and you are expecting it to happen. David gives you two examples. We went to Psalm 17, where you have number two faith, which is you're anticipating the rapture. Psalm 17:15. As for me, I will behold thy face in righteousness. That's the rapture. Has it happened yet? No. David's talking about death or the rapture here, where you will behold the face of the Lord in purity. Not on the earth. The earth is not righteousness. The earth is a mixed bag at best. I shall be satisfied when I awake with thy likeness. Now you're getting one of the most profound scriptures in the Bible. This is your first scripture that gives you detail as to what you're going to look like and feel like when you go to heaven. David gives you that. Now you can go from Genesis all the way to chapter 17 of the book of Psalms, and you will not find any description as wonderful as this. David is only giving you a few words, but they're powerful, such as satisfaction. Being satisfied with the new you. You're looking good. This is wonderful stuff. So that's faith number 2, called the blessed hope. So David is giving you number 1. He's anticipating things in his body, positive. Just like he said, surely goodness will follow me all the days of my life. Then he gives you number 2, the blessed hope. In these 3 abide. Right? Got it? And number 2 is also standing in awe of the rapture, anticipating. And of course, number 2 is at the end of Psalm 23, of multiple examples, by the way. And I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. That's number 2. That's tabernacle. That's the last festival of the Hebrews. It's the last event, which is Revelation 21:22. You're going to sit around the Lord, and that's tabernacle, and that's in the presence of the Lord, and that's what we look forward to big time. That's our chief joy. The thing that makes me the happiest is anticipating being with somebody who loves me that much. Just like anticipating being with my parents, especially when I was a kid. I was wholly dependent upon my parents, and it was a wonderful dependency. It was all good. Because they came through every time. It got to the point where you just expected it, and automation. You didn't even, the thought of not getting a wonderful dinner and Dad going to work and bringing home the groceries, smiling with a pecan pie, you never doubted it was going to happen. Now I had neighbors who had parents, they were unfaithful. They were not reliable. They could not put confidence in them. But Jesus is faithful. You can put your confidence in him because of the way he's treated you already. You can count on it. Prophecy in the Bible came to fruition. The mathematical probability of all the things that God promised in the Old Testament to come true in real time is beyond the amount of data bits in the DNA molecule. So here's the point. It's not difficult to put your confidence in the Lord. Let's go to number 3. Number 3 is two different kinds of doubting. But there are many different ways of not believing and not trusting in the Lord and not having confidence. But I wanted to focus on 2 here, which is agnostic and atheistic. Agnostic means I don't know. And I basically don't want to know. Atheist means no God. I don't believe in God. So there are different kinds of people who are owning this category. And they're essentially antichrists. An atheist doesn't necessarily not believe in God. He doesn't believe in the God that you're telling him. He can believe that the devil's God. So he's not an atheist per se. Now he's an atheist in the pure sense of the word, because theist means one God. But if he believes in many gods, or the devil as a god, then he's not really an atheist. He believes that the devil is some sort of creator. If you go to Freemason meetings and you go past the third stage, where you put your hand in your shirt and so forth, that's a sign to the other members that you went past the third rite, which means you called that gentleman most worshipful, all these kinds of very, very amazingly sick, dumb things. Like children in the backyard cutting their finger and making vows in a playhouse. Infantile, mentally retarded stuff, especially when you consider the Bible in your face, the King James Bible. That you would call another man reverence. Kisses ring, the Holy See, the special leader. This is nonsense. It's okay for people to give me double honor as a Bible teacher, but I am not I am not worthy of any worship or any adoration at all. None. As a Bible teacher. You can thank me. You can say you thank God for me and you rejoice in me. There's nothing wrong with that at all. So number 3 is the 2 categories of people who don't believe. One of them just ignores the idea. I don't know. I don't care to know. The other is that they are against the idea of the Lord being Lord, and they don't buy into it. One way or another. It's not that they don't know that God exists or don't want to know. They're saying that if he does, they don't like the idea. In a pure form, because they can't say that they don't worship some God because they're worshiping themselves. If you belong to the Invictus crowd that say that you can conquer anything, they had a movie here recently where a man lost his arms and he said that he's very confident and he has Invictus, that he can overcome all obstacles on his own. And where does that lead back to? Error, the occult, cult, heresy, error, bad idea that you can perform things on your own, that you can overcome things on your own, that you can be a God on your own. When in fact you didn't create yourself, you didn't set up positions for you to be born, and your parents take care of you and just leave you in the woods. How can you say that you're on your own? That's ludicrous. Let's go to number 4. 4 is denominations and factions of the faith. There are slight variations in people who read this King James Bible, and they take sound doctrine and the sound doctrine matrix, and they tweak it to their own little so forth. That's why I'm basically non-denominational. I don't have any tweaks on the Bible. I'm not Lutheran or anything. I'm a sound doctrine teacher like Paul the Apostle. I have no title. I have no bend. I have no twist. I have no nothing. I'm a Christian, called a Christian at Antioch. That's what I am. And I need not identify myself any further. And any other further identification can actually demonstrate some problems with a convert. Okay? Denominations. Different faces, different takes on the King James Bible. And of course, I'm talking right now about denominations of the Protestant faith, whereby the errors or the differences are not significant or extremely significant. That's my point. Number 5 is these 3 abide, or they should abide. That's what Paul is saying. He is also saying that they could abide, which is number 1, your terra hopes while you're walking around as a Christian. Number 2 is your rapture hope, being with the Lord. And number 3 is love. Number 1 can be experienced without love. Number 2 demands love. If you own number 1 and number 2 with love, then you own love. Number 3, and all 3 of them are abiding with you. The hopes you have today, the hopes you have to be with the Lord, and number 1 and 2 they possess love. That's how these 3 abide. You're hoping to be with Jesus Christ with love, which is kind of a contradiction. It doesn't make sense because you can't have the blessed hope unless you love the Lord, because you're hoping to be with the Lord. However, both of them, suffice it to say that both hopes have love when you have all 3. That's the point, okay? Number 1 is your day-to-day. We just went over that with David. An excellent example in the Old Testament of the New Covenant. You can use David a lot for the New Covenant, even though he is Old Covenant, because he is one of the leaders of the Old Covenant. David has a lot to say that's very similar to Paul the Apostle. Old Testament revelation can be used for New Testament, but it's dangerous. You need to tread lightly and be careful, because you can get lost in the Old Testament where the New Testament has been redefined, and it redefines everything, and you need to be careful and go to the New Testament first. David says the same thing Paul does that we just referenced in Psalm 17:15 in the book of Corinthians and elsewhere, where he talks about what? Being with the Lord and getting a new body. Both of them mention the same exact subject. And both of them we use to talk about the subject of you being brand new. And we rejoice in the brand new body, because this body is vile, as Paul said. God wants it to deteriorate. I don't care what the people said on TV, or I had somebody tell me the other day that by his stripes I'm healed. Basically what they're saying, forever, which is nonsense. You are healed by God's stripes, Jesus' stripes, and you can be healed most definitely. And we pray for that in the church circles that I have attended. You better believe it. But to say that you're going to be healed every time instantaneously, even when you get old, doesn't make any sense, because your organs must fail for you to die. If that scripture was true and applicable for you throughout your life, you would actually never die. The scripture is a much broader ideology or idea than you may think so, especially if you have some bozo who's not well educated teaching you these scriptures. It's unfortunate that if you ask anything according to his will, the reason why people don't know sound doctrine is they're trying to force their will on the master. They're trying to say that they don't have to take up their cross. That's what they're saying. Which means they don't know the doctrine, and because they're imposing their will on the proper submission as a servant and a soldier. You're redefining the commands, and you're not the commander. Therefore, you don't know proper teaching, and it's your fault. Because you're playing pick apart, and you're not rightly dividing the word of truth, and you're hiding scriptures, and you're adding scriptures, and you're subtracting scriptures. That's called error. Jeremiah's here to set you straight. And it's not that difficult. I'm not a whiz kid. I'm just Jeremiah the prophet. That's all I am. So these three should abide and could abide. I went into that, and I'm not going to go into it anymore. We're going to let that go. 6 is two kinds of believers: those who have saving confidence and those who don't have saving confidence. I went into that already. They're basically people who follow after Jesus, but they don't follow him. They follow after him, but they don't follow his example. They don't put on the same mind he had. That means they're following after. They're what we call hang-around people who just hang around. They're looky-loos. They have no intention of buying the house. They're just walking through the house. They have no intention of owning their soul, but they're curious as to how people are going to do so. A lot of people go into church, they realize how to acknowledge how you own your soul in the church by obviously putting on the commands of Jesus Christ on your heart, and those commands are centered around denial and sacrifice and laying down your life for the brethren, which is the love of Jesus Christ, and the royal law fulfilled in you and your activities. They reject that. and they seek to present a presentation of the gospel where they're going to separate, as Paul told Timothy, long-suffering from Bible teaching. That's what they're doing. Paul tells Timothy, you can't separate the cross from Christianity. And if you do, you're an infection like COVID in the church, which is pretty big right now. That's why it's called a falling away. There are two kinds of believers. I've already went over it. There are a lot of looky-loos. They walk through the church. They want the benefits. They have no idea at all, and they will never accept the cup that Mrs. Zebedee said, John's mother said that she was going to drink, which is, I'm open to difficulties in laying down my life for the building up of the brokenhearted. End of story. So number 1 and 2, as far as you having saving faith, you have to own number 1 and number 2 in order for you to have saving faith. And if you own number 1 and number 2, you have the love of God. And if you keep number 1 and 2, having confidence while you're walking that God is going to be good, as we just mentioned, and you have number 2, you're going to have smooth sailing. Number 2, essentially, number two is, let's put it this way. Your confidence in being with the Lord is the key, because why would you want to believe in God just to believe in God and get a brand new car and be healed and die? Which is essentially what number 1 people do, who only have number 1. They're confident in God for things in this life. That's all they're confident for. Because they don't anticipate being with the one they love, because they don't love him. That's the point. Let's go to 7. We're gonna let that go. I went through that already. Let's do a couple more points on number 6. 6 is 2 are in the mix, okay? You might say 6 is in the mix, 5, 3 abide, 4 is denomination doors, 3 is I don't believe, 2 is examples, 1 is where everybody starts. So, well, let me do a little more on number 6. 2 kinds of believers. The cross carrier is a verifier of saving faith. That's the point. Because Jesus Christ said, if you follow after me, you got to take up the cross. You have to take it up. Jesus said, put my yoke. You've got to put his yoke on you. He's not going to put the yoke on you. He's not going to force you to take up the cross and hold the cross. That's simple grammar. I'm going to get into that later in number 11. Okay? I was talking with a pastor here. He talked about how Christianity is really a response to love, and that's wonderful. And I've taught on that, and I'll teach some more on that. That Christianity is easy because God loved you first. And all you're doing is a reasonable retort. It's not anything difficult to understand looking at it from that perspective. However, it gets more complicated because God's not going to make you love him back. There are some who are not going to give God glory for loving him first. They're not going to do it. We have some excellent examples. One of them is when the master said, where are the other 9? I healed 10 people. Only 1 came back to show love. Only 1 came back to glorify God for what they received. The other 9 had faith, but they didn't have number 2, which is a love response. And that love response is going to anticipate being with the one that healed you. And you want to please the one that healed you. That's number 2. So number 1, when it gets love, you came to Jesus Christ, you believed in all of the teachings. When you add love to your confidence, number 1, your daily confidence in the gospel, when you begin to add love to that daily walk, you will have saving faith at that point, because you're going to develop the love of being with the one who loved you first. But you have to develop that love through you recognizing the value of trading in the party life for the great pearl of being with Jesus Christ. You must acknowledge that, and you must believe that it's worth it. You got that? We're going to go to the next video. This is Jeremiah. We're going to go back to 7 now. This is Jeremiah signing off. What are we listening to? The voice of the Lord. Okay? Shalom and Maranatha, the Lord is coming.